Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Izzy and today I have my January wrap up. I'm happy with the amount of books that I was able to read. I read a total of 8 books. First of all, I'm a huge mood reader and I try my best to stick to my TBR as much as I can. So I do have my notes here. So I apologize if you see me like looking down. It's because I'm looking at my notes so that I don't ramble on. And yeah, so let's go ahead and chat about the books I read for the month of January. Okay, so again, I was able to read 8 total books for the month of January. I am someone who loves to go into books blindly, but I do on occasion because I watch other people's YouTube videos. I see what books are about, and if it's something that seems interesting to me, I will pick this up. So I'm going to try to be as vague as I possibly can because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys, but at the same time, anything that I mention is something that is included under the Goodreads description for each book. I just want to disclaim that because of the fact that I like going into books blindly. I don't know how you personally like to go into books, but this is a wrap up. So I'm just going to kind of give a small like description of the book, you would say, and I did start off with an audiobook. So the first book that I read was Unfaithful Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I did read this from December 31st to January the 3rd. We follow a character named Emma, and she has married her high school sweetheart named Jesse. So this couple, they are married, and sadly Jesse goes missing. He goes missing on a trip that he took. His helicopter goes down and he is presumed dead. There were no survivors at all, nobody was found, so he is presumed dead, and Emma is left utterly heartbroken. Years pass, and when she finally decides to move on, so she is now engaged to somebody else. She is now engaged to the lovely Sam, who has been in love with her since they were kids. Jessie comes back and she's kind of left with having to make the decision of who is her one true love. But of course, that's impossible. They've both loved her intensely, immensely, and this book left me heartbroken. I would say that I was pretty okay with the ending. This book did really make me cry. At the same time, I'm a huge crybaby, so take that as you will. And I did give this book a 5 stars. I loved this book. This is not the first Taylor Jenkins book that I've read, but this is probably the best one that I've read by her so far. So after that, I did finish another audiobook. This one was called The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. Jesus. This one is by Grady Hendrix. And I read this one from December 22nd to January the 6th. And honestly, like I said, I read this on audiobook, and the voice actress for the audiobook, I couldn't really pinpoint an age for her, so I'm not really sure. Like the whole time that I was reading this, I wasn't sure if the main characters, because there is a group of ladies, I wasn't sure if they were like in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s. Honestly, I don't really know. It is set in the 90s, and we do follow Patricia Campbell. So Patricia Campbell, she used to be a nurse, so she is like a housewife, and she joins a book club with other women who stay at home. So these women, they love to read books with serial killers. They love to read like Ted Bundy. I think they read like Helter Skelter, men like Jeffrey Dahmer. And so one day, this young man who moves into their town, children start to go missing. So of course, Patricia begins to suspect this man of harming the children in her community, and she is out to prove that he is the one indeed harming these children. Now, because these women are staying at home, men don't listen to them. Like, they think that they are going crazy. They think that this is all in Patricia's head because of the fact that she reads all of these books, and they really do think that they're getting to her head. Just seeing that was, I don't even know how to say it in English. I was like desesperada the whole time. It's kind of like a suspense. So one of the big things and one of the big issues that I saw in this book were like racial profiling, and the fact that the Black community now and then, they just deserve so much more attention and deserve just as much as protection as white families and white communities. And seeing how the Black community in this book was not as respected as the white community, and being the target of these awful crimes because society doesn't give them as much importance, was heartbreaking. And I think that was a really huge issue, and it is an eye-opener for sure. I really appreciated like the theme and the things that were discussed in the book, but at the same time, for me, it was really slow. I was almost dragging to listen to this, and that says a lot because audiobooks tend to be, you know, faster paced because you could just be listening to this while you're doing anything. And I found myself like not leaning to read this book. So because of that, I did end up giving this a 3-star, but nevertheless still a really good book. That audiobook did kind of put me a bit of a reading slump, so I needed to pick up something lighter and more fun. So this is completely out of its season, and I did pick up The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. I read this from January 15th to January 16th. I picked this up because it was available for me to borrow on Libby, and I'm glad I picked it up because it did kind of put me in a lighter mood to keep reading. This was a fun audiobook for me to pick up. So we follow Vivi Jones, who was basically heartbroken, and in her heartbreak she was drinking and did a little bit of magic and accidentally hexed her ex. Now I believe this is pronounced Reese or Rice. Basically Reese Penhollow. This is a man that broke her heart, and years later he returns to the town of Graves Glen, Georgia. He has the task of like renewing landlines in the town, and because he is hexed, he accidentally hexes the whole town. Vivian and Reese have to basically find a way to break the spell, and I think this book was very giddy. It was, like I said, a fun read. I wasn't expecting to pick this up because I have seen this book before and I didn't want to pick it up. So because it was a light read and because it did help me get out of a small reading slump, I give this book a 3.5 stars, and I believe there's another book to this, The Kiss Curse, and I will definitely be picking that up, but I am going to wait and put it off until October once the Halloween season comes up. And after that, I did pick up Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Basterrica, and I did pick this up on my Kindle. I did also borrow it from Libby. I read this book from January 6th to January 19th. So this book I have been wanting to read for the longest. So in this book, we follow a dystopian world where animals are no longer good to consume. There is this virus that goes around and animals have it, but they do kill humans, and so instead of humans going vegetarian, they go cannibal, and they raise other humans to basically be meat. Now humans passed a law to where they can consume other humans, but they are called special meat, and we follow the main character as he is given special meat. He's given this woman and he falls in love with her. But of course, her being special meat and being made for consumption, it is against the law to use this special meat as slaves and to use this special meat as, do I have to say it? So I did end up giving this book a 4.5 stars. Just the idea of it was really good. And like, I was so disgusted as I was reading this because it describes butchering human flesh like how they butcher animals. And a lot of people said that they didn't eat meat for the following X amount of time after reading this book. And me personally, I still eat meat, but I've never wanted to eat meat. If I can see eyes, if I can see bone, like chicken with bone, that's a no for me. So just reading about this, you know, made me think twice about the consumption of animals. I just can't live without meat. Still a very, very interesting read. The concept of this is very rare, no pun intended. Again, I did give this book 4.5 stars. Such a great read, a very fast read as well. I would highly suggest anyone to pick this up if you're interested. All right, so next up, I also picked up 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. I did read this within the span of 8 hours. The vlog where I read this book is up on my channel, and I can link that up here and also down below if you're interested in watching that. I'm not gonna go super in detail about this because again, that vlog is on my channel if you are interested. But we do follow a suspense, I would say. So we follow 6 friends who are out on a trip. They are going to celebrate spring break, and they do go in an RV. So we follow these 6 friends as they are stranded in an RV and are basically held hostage in this RV, and they have 8 hours in order to escape. So I did read this in 2 days within the span of 8 hours. I read this from January 23rd to January 24th, and I ended up giving this book 4 stars. Next up, I did pick up another audiobook called What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. So this is not my first Kingfisher book. I did also pick up The Hollow Places, and I still haven't even finished it. It's taken me quite a while to read that one, but I decided to pick it up on audiobook because again, this other Kingfisher book that I was reading has taken me quite a bit to read, and I was interested in seeing if it was just that book or if it was the author, and turns out I think it's just a book that is really slow because I did enjoy this one. So this book, What Moves the Dead, is actually a retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's classic, The Fall of House Usher. So we follow this soldier who goes to visit her childhood friend Madeline because she is actually dying. So this soldier, her name is Alex. So on her way to the house of Usher to meet her childhood friend, she actually meets a mycologist. When she arrives to the house to visit her childhood friend, she sees that she is actually in very poor condition, but she's also acting very strange. And with the help of this mycologist that she found on her way to the house of Usher, they work together to see what is wrong, because there is like this virus that is consuming the dead, and it is consuming dead animals, and it looks like it might even be consuming Madeline. So they work together to unravel this disease because it can potentially harm them all. This book was creepy in a good way, and I really enjoyed it, and I ended up giving this book a 3 out of 5 stars. Now, yes, I did pick up a whole bunch of audiobooks, but that is because I'm sorry, did I wake you up? I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to wake you up, Papash. That was your nap. Sorry. So yes, as I was saying, I did pick up a whole bunch of audiobooks because I did also read Babel by R.F. Kuang, which, as you can see, is it's a pretty hefty book. This had around 550 pages. This was basically like me picking up either 2 to 3 physical books. Oh, thank you. I love you too, Papas. Man, was this a good book. So I read this from January 5th to January 29th. Man, there is so much to say about this book. Like, this book has so much content. It is so diverse, so good. The reason why I picked this up is because it revolves around languages and language learning. And of course, I was gonna pick this up. I'm not gonna lie, I was scared for this book because R.F. Kuang is very intelligent. She's very intellectual. And I felt like I wasn't gonna give this book justice, so I am going to try my best. In terms of the plot, this again does revolve around languages, and it is a fantasy, adult fantasy, which does take place in Oxford University. So again, the concept of this book is just so immersive. This book is full of student revolutions, colonialism, the British Empire, resistance, power control. I mean, literally, this book it's just so good. I did annotate this, as you can see, and I'm definitely going to be rereading this book because although it did have some slow parts, like the social commentary in this was so good. R.F. Kuang did not shy away. The guts that she has for her to say some of the things that she wrote on this, I was like, wow. Like, she really said that. One of the biggest things that I saw in this was the ignorance of like segregation and racial profiling, and basically the English Empire using foreign resources to build itself and control the entire world basically, and put their power on top of everybody else. The fact that the British Empire was basically run by foreigners, foreign power, foreign knowledge, because yes, they do use language as a use of controlling, and there is some magical concept in this book as well. I feel like you just need to read this. I feel like everybody needs to read this. I picked this up again because of the languages and my love for languages, but it ended up being much more than that. The fact that some of these characters are having to basically turn away from their motherland, work for the British Empire because they believe that they should, because basically Oxford University is like handing them all these resources that the university don't think that they deserve, and other students in the Oxford University don't think that they deserve this. And so it kind of brainwashes the students, the foreign students, to work for the British Empire because yes, why would they bite off the hand that feeds them? Eventually these students realize that no, like, they are not going to turn away from their motherland. They're not going to turn away from their traditions. And because basically these students were ripped and just who they truly are. I was close to giving this book 4.5 stars because yes, it did have a lot of slow moments, but I ended up giving this book 5 stars because the ending to this, I'm just gonna shut up. I'm gonna shut up. You need to pick this up. You need to read this book. Like, truly, I'm telling you, R.F. Kuang has balls. She has the guts to say what many of us can't. I know this is going to be, if not top 10, top 5 for this year. I can already feel it, and it is barely January. Yes, 5 stars. Pick this up. It's a weapon, not only because of the words, but because it's huge. And next up, I also picked up the American Roommate Experience. This is book number 2. Book number 1 was Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas, and I read this book from January 22nd to January 29th. So I loved this book. Elena Armas, she did it again. I am not a fan of slow burn romances at all, but the way that she wrote Lucas, who is Aaron Blackford? Truly, who is that man? I don't know who Aaron Blackford is. We don't know Aaron Blackford. We don't know him. So the American Roommate Experience, we follow Lucas, who is Lena's cousin from Spain, and Rosie, who is Lena's best friend. So something happens to Rosie's apartment where she is having to stay at Lena's apartment, and Lucas comes from Spain to visit, and he is also needing to stay at Lena's apartment. So because they are both in a situation where they don't have anywhere to live, they decide that it is okay to be roommates. Why should one leave when they have the space, you know? And so they become roommates.
And they were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
And it goes from there. Like, the sparks are there, the smut is there. Elena Armas, she wrote some good scenes, is all I'm gonna say. Like, in comparison to Aaron, Lucas was lovable, he was nice, he was funny. He wasn't the serious, I keep to myself man that Aaron is. And truly, Lucas is husband material. But I do have to say that the miscommunication in this pissed me off, but in a good way. Because I really enjoyed the book, I did end up giving this book a 5 stars, and I think it was a good way to end my reading month as well. So yes, that is all of the books that I read for the month of January. I didn't get to read the Scythe series, which I'm really hoping that I'm going to get to that for the month of March. But for now, my February TBR is looking straight at me right now, and I'm actually going to get started that after I finish filming this video. So let me know if you're interested in picking up any of the books that I mentioned in this video. You should be picking up, people. If you enjoyed, go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up, and if you have been enjoying my content so far, don't forget to subscribe down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. We'll see you next time.